All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Jiu-Jitsu Health. I'm William, and today I'm thrilled to have Yannick Magee with us. He's the driving force behind Yannick Magee Nutrition, where he combines his MMA and Jiu-Jitsu and all kinds of stuff with his nutrition degree. And so, thanks a lot for joining us, Yannick.
No problem, William. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So, could you start us out? Tell us a little bit about your background, uh, education, and the fact that you're in Northern Ireland right now.
Yeah, sunny Northern Ireland it is today.
Yeah.
For one day only. I don't think it's gonna last. So this is summertime. Yeah, so my background, it's a pretty long story. Kind of been involved in martial arts now for a lifetime, really. Started with, the usual karate, taekwondo type stuff when I was younger. Took a little bit of a hiatus from martial arts as I was going maybe through my teens and things like that. Coming maybe about 19 or 20 again, started getting back into it. Started with Wing Chun Kung Fu, did it for a number of years. From there, then we kind of progressed to Jiu-Jitsu. The guy that was running the Wing Chun school had a friend at the time who was a blue belt, and this was 2006, and for us, or 2005 actually, and for us to have a blue belt at that stage in jiu-jitsu was amazing. Like Ireland was way behind in those days. I think there was maybe one black belt in the whole country, so we had a blue belt teaching us. Then we got randomly ended up with a Brazilian guy that was moved to Ireland and was working with one of the guys that trained for us. He was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, multiple times South American champion, very, very good, black belt in judo. So he came off the building site and came into the gym and started teaching us jiu-jitsu. So I started getting into jiu-jitsu more from there, competed in, I think it was 2006, first competition, got my blue belt in 2010, and then moved away from jiu-jitsu, got into Muay Thai, MMA, fought professional in both of those. Moved away from the jiu-jitsu for about 12 years. And during that time then went to university, got my degree in nutrition, started my nutrition business. I've been working with guys from jiu-jitsu background, MMA, Muay Thai, professional athletes, people that are just hobbyists, general pop people as well. And then I think it was about 12 years altogether from when I was on the mats doing jiu-jitsu. I was obviously doing a little bit with MMA, but then got back to actually in the gi on the mats again this past 2 years. So yeah, fell in love with jiu-jitsu again. So, long time involved in martial arts. Potentially could have been a black belt by now if I had stuck at it, but I had done other things, but I'm back at it now and enjoying it. So working full-time nutrition coaching for myself, and working with UFC athletes, working with people fighting Bellator, PFL, high-level Muay Thai, high-level Jiu-Jitsu, and yeah, competing a lot myself in Jiu-Jitsu now as well. So yeah, it's good. It's good to be back at it, and it's a lot easier on the body than getting punched in the face all the time, I think, as well.
Yeah, especially as we all tend to get older, right? So they always say that some of those injuries, they kind of, the things that you've had when you were younger, as you get older, they start kind of coming to the surface a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
amazing,
definitely.
amazing history. So one thing I think is interesting is we've had a lot of good feedback from some of the parents. There's a
Mhm.
lot of parents who are getting their kids into judo, jujitsu, MMA, all kinds of stuff when they're pretty young. Sometimes as young as 10, and
Yeah.
they're getting into the school wrestling programs or whatever. And so I'm just kind of curious, just as a real quick thought, maybe this isn't something that you deal with all the time, but some of the parents might be interested to know for these younger kids, what's your thought regarding nutrition for, you know, some of the younger kids? Because obviously when they're in school, it's hard to, manage their diets, right? Because they're kids. So what's your
For sure.
thoughts on that and them for, their, keeping up what they need throughout that kind of rough athletics?
Yeah, so it's something that I've been asked quite a lot. I've actually done talks in jiu-jitsu schools for parents. Um, and it is, as you say, it's an area that it's very hard. You know, kids are kids. Kids want to eat what kids want to eat. I have two of my own, and both of them are doing jiu-jitsu. One is 5, one is 8. Um, One will eat a lot of different things. The other one is very, very fussy in what he eats. So it can be quite difficult for parents, and it's completely understandable. We do want them to eat, in a certain way. We do think, we need to get them to eat healthy, and it's going to be better for them and things like that. But it can be hard. I think a couple of different things we have to sort of think about when we're thinking about nutrition for children. Number one is what are the issues? The general issues for children are, an overconsumption of calorie dense foods, processed foods. They want McDonald's, they want sweets, they want, potato chips, as you call them, crisps, as we call them here.
Yeah.
They want to eat junk, basically. They see their friends eating it, different things like that. An underconsumption of nutrient dense foods, they don't really eat as healthy of a diet as what we would like them to. And food environment can be a difficult thing as well for children. So I think those are the big issues. And if we can address those, in different ways, there's so many different strategies that we can use with children to try and sort of help improve their diet. One big thing I would say is you should never really try and put a child on a diet as such, in my opinion anyway. You shouldn't really be trying to say to a child, you're on a diet now, because it just they're not adults, they don't understand the concept. It can lead to issues in later life. If we have a child that's counting calories, or a child that's concerned about their weight and weighing themselves, and we're then asking them to undereat, to drop weight, it can create a bit of a complex, especially in girls as they grow older. So I think when we come to improving a child's diet, it has to come from different methods. We can't say, right, let's cut out this stuff. And, you can't have that sort of authoritarian approach to it. You can't say, right, you're not eating this, you're not eating that, you have to eat this. If you don't finish your dinner, you're not getting to watch TV, or you're not getting to play your games. We can't punish them. We also can't really allow them to dictate what they're doing as well, because that can lead to issues in later life. If it's sort of child-led as well, like a passive kind of parenting approach, it's not great. So I think like the best approach, and it seems to be the best approach too from the research, is more of an authoritative approach, like a democratic approach almost, in a way, where we're involved in the child a lot more. It's not parent-led, it's not child-led, it's we're working together, and we're involved in the child in decision making around food choices. We are setting sort of boundaries within reason, but we are letting the child have a bit of a say in what they're eating. I suppose we are like leading by example as well. If a parent's eating well, and a parent's, saying, oh, try this new food, and not trying to force it on them. We're trying to, here, I'm eating carrots, whatever it is, would you like to try one? And just sort of involve them in it, involve them in the planning of the meals, involve them in the cooking of the meals, all of those sorts of things. I think, just getting the child a lot more involved in their decision makings and showing from example is a big thing to help them.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there's some really great points. Let's move on to regular BJJ people. Let's think about the average Joe who trains 2 or 3 times a week. Obviously hydration is important, but are there any other, maybe 2 key points that you would suggest for them to maybe add something to their diet or whatever, so they can, keep up the pace and kind of keep working on their stamina?
Yeah. So it is something that I suppose is across the board, children, hobbyists, just your general person going compete, or not even competing, just, training jiu-jitsu, or any sport really that's relatively moderate to high intensity, or even athletes, fueling their workouts is something that I don't think enough people pay attention to. You get some people that don't even think about eating close to the training or before training. They'll try to do that in a fasted state, maybe because they just feel that they can't handle it, or their stomach can't handle it, or they just don't really like eating food close to it. But if you're trying to do a jiu-jitsu session, especially, not so bad if it's a drilling session, you're just doing drills and it's low intensity, it's not taxing, it's not going to really raise the heart rate. But if it's a session and you're going to have hard rolls, scrambles, you're doing takedowns, you're doing all of these sorts of things, you need to fuel those training sessions, and generally, the type of fuel that you need to have. And you do see this a lot as well, where people have such a low carb diet, or even, people are maybe doing keto or whatever else. And, as much as those things are fine, potentially, if they're doing it for, they enjoy it, or they, they just prefer that, they're maybe doing it for weight loss, even though there's no real difference between low carb, high carb for weight loss. But you see a lot of people kind of like have this aversion to eating carbohydrates, whereas if we're doing jiu-jitsu, carbohydrates is going to be the main fuel source to get us through that session. So I think that's an area. There's so many different areas as well that people sort of don't focus on and neglect, but fueling their workouts properly and including carbohydrates at least around their training is something that a lot of people tend to disregard, and they don't really focus on it, and a lot of the clients that I work with, simple change straight away is, let's get some carbohydrates leading into your training session. Let's make sure that we're at least getting a decent amount throughout the day to support your training, but also then timing it around your training session. So, whether it's 2 hours before, whether it's 90 minutes, 60 minutes before, let's put something small, easy digestible snack in there. And then if the training session's over an hour long, an hour and a half, maybe running into 2 hours, let's get some form of carbohydrate sports drink or something along the lines of that, which is going to keep your hydration up, but it's also going to provide more carbohydrates during the session. If we can do those two things, I think people will notice a boost in their performance.
Yes.
They might think that they're performing well as it is, but there's almost an extra gear comes out of them, if you give them that. And if they can't handle it, because of gut reasons or whatever else, you start small and then you can gradually, progressively overload, and you can essentially train the gut to be able to handle it, to get you to a point then that you can carb up essentially before your training session. So for me, that's a very, very common issue that I see with a lot of people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this moves right into people who are preparing for tournaments. So what would you do to, we all know that preparing for a tournament, you increase the hours per week, durations or whatever. So what additional things would you add? Obviously more carbs, but let's talk about just very briefly, what additions would you give them, say, just 2 weeks out? And then just before the tournament, a lot of people say, I'm just gonna have some honey, I'm just gonna do some other things, just before the tournament, maybe to give me a boost of energy or something like that. What are your thoughts about those two things? So the 2 weeks leading up, and then maybe a couple days or the night before.
Yeah, so I suppose, leading into a tournament, it really comes down to a couple of things. Do they have any weight to lose? A lot of the people you see that they obviously have to make your weight class. Some people will fight up and they'll not worry about weight. In that case, they can keep their calories high. If their calories are high, they've loads of energy availability. They can train hard. The carbs are high. They can fuel their workouts, and they have no real issues. And if that's the case, they can actually load carbohydrates leading into into the competition so they can come in there fully fueled. For people that have weight to cut, I think it's, rather than just, the 2 weeks leading into it, it's what you do even before that matters. I see this with even the MMA guys and Muay Thai guys that I would work with. Some of them will come to me and they say I have a competition in 2 weeks, and they're like, okay, what's your diet look like now? They're like, "Oh, it looks like this," and I was like, okay, how much weight do you need to lose? And they've a lot of weight to lose. So what they've been doing habitually doesn't really, it doesn't really put them in a good place leading into the competition. So I think what somebody does in the long term leads into the competition, if that makes sense. So, not even just the 2 weeks, even before that, making sure that you're fueling your workouts, making sure that if you're trying to lose weight, you're not cutting your calories too low, that you're maybe impacting your recovery, impacting your adaptation to your training stimulus, and just leaving yourself depleted coming towards the competition. So I think having good structure around your diet in the lead up, in the last maybe couple of weeks, 2 weeks, if somebody does have weight to lose, if they've had their diet built in a certain way that they have what I call fill your buckets, or have full buckets, leading into the competition week. So essentially, if they have weight to lose for the competition, you can do that from a couple of different methods. Generally we don't want to cut carbohydrates out because that's your fuel. So we want to keep carbs in there. But if you have an acute weight cut to make and get you ready for the competition, you can drop that weight and get ready for the competition, but stay fully fueled, if that makes sense. So we want to keep our carbohydrates up in the last maybe week or so, last few days. We can reduce our fiber, reduce our sodium intake, maybe a bit of fluid manipulation, things like that, where we can drop the weight, but we also want to keep the carbs high leading into the competition. So it really depends on where they're at. If they've weight to lose, we need to do these things. If they've no weight to lose, they can kind of, eat relatively well, plenty of calories, carbs, all of those things, and come in fueled. If they have weight to lose, they need to have their buckets full, and they need to manipulate their diet in a certain way to get that weight off. But they don't want to do that at the cost of being able to show up and perform. So again, carbohydrates is going to be, the fuel source. So making sure we've plenty of carbs, plenty of glycogen in there, leading into the competition. Then again, depending on weight, I've seen people sitting in hot baths trying to cut water weight out before an IBJJF competition, and trying to do maybe 2 to 3 kilos of water weight, which is just going to drain you so much. IBJJF, you weigh in 10-15 minutes, you're on the mats. You don't have a recovery period at all. So I think it comes down to structure a plan and making sure that you're have everything laid out, that you're not going to do anything sort of drastic at the end, that you're not doing any drastic weight cut. You can fully fuel the morning off. If you're trying to fuel up again, you'll be looking, if weight's not an issue and you can carb up, you're looking at a pretty high carb breakfast, small snacks, plenty of fluid, making sure that you're remaining hydrated throughout the week, making sure that you're hydrated leading into the competition. You have that good availability of carbs leading into the competition. So it is very individual to the circumstances. I know that's a bit of a rant there, and I went off on a tangent, but yeah, it does. I think it boils down to where they're at in terms of weight, in terms of their diet and things like that. That's
a great, man. That's a lot of really good information. I mean, the first thing that I thought of is some of the pro MMA guys or any other people who are pros. Sometimes they'll get a call short term and say, hey, can you take this fight? And you've only got, say, 10 weeks or 10 days to do it, or something like that. And I kind of think what you're talking about is, for those pros, they're already sort of maintaining a certain kind of diet and lifestyle. So for some of them, taking the 10-day fight is not as bad because they have the foundation there already, and they just need to fine tune it at the end.
Exactly. This is it is something that I sort of talk to a lot of my clients about, and listen, it's hard to get them to do it, but it's a concept like 52-week athlete. You're not just thinking of your nutrition when you're in fight camp. You're not just thinking about your nutrition when it's fight week. or leading into the fight. You're thinking about it 52 weeks of the year. Yes, you don't have to be so strict and on it, but if you have those things in place and you do pay some attention to it, your weight's good, your buckets are full, you have plenty of fuel in there, you're not depleted, you don't have to do a drastic weight cut. It just leaves them in such a better position where they can take short notice fights. And if you can get people on board with that, it's so much better for them. They're not stressing out over weight, they're not depleting themselves to get the weight off, they're not having to do drastic weight cuts. And I've seen some serious weight cuts in my time. But if you can get the people that I have on long term and that I work with really well, and they're adherent most of the time,
Yeah.
they're the people that can just say to me, Yannick, I have a fight in a week. We need to cut weight. Bang. And it's easy. They can do it. They make weight, no problems. The people that drift off and then they're like, come back to you, oh, I have a fight in 2 weeks. I'm 90 kilos and I need to be 70 or something crazy, 8 weeks out and they're 90 kilos and they need to be 70, whatever it is. They're the people that struggle. So I think that concept of a 52-week athlete, or even just thinking about your nutrition outside of competition and outside of, try and make it a lifestyle essentially, and if you can do that, it leaves you in such a better position.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, there's a lot of people who talk about all kinds of supplements. They'll say they'll do creatine. They think that having a large amount of protein is really important, like either from protein powders or whatever. And I remember one of the weight cuts that I did, I had to get down to a certain point, and it was a real slog. And what I ended up doing was, just simply kind of starving myself a little bit, just doing like a lot of salads and some chicken here and there. And it was just kind of horrible. I kind of don't want to go through that again. But part of it, I think, is most likely I didn't have anybody, a pro like you, explaining, hey, you should be adding this to your diet or whatever. I was just kind of thinking about whatever I can do for myself. And it probably wasn't 100%, but what are your thoughts regarding protein and creatine? I went through a phase where I took creatine and had some blood work, and there's that creatinine level that's in your kidneys. So my level went really high past the red zone. And so the doctor was saying, it just probably isn't a good idea to keep doing that. So I went off the creatine. So what are your two thoughts on that, the supplements and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so creatine is, probably one of the, if not the most research supplement that's out there. Amazing benefits for a large number of things: endurance performance, high intensity performance, muscle mass maintenance, even cognitive benefits, neuroprotective benefits, so many different benefits of creatine. Because it is going to be broken down, you are going to see those metabolites, and it is going to show up higher in your blood work. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's, that's usually a marker of, kidney issues, kidney function issues. But but creatine will impact that marker. So, if you can differentiate that from, right, okay, I stop the creatine, does the marker come down? I start the creatine again, yes, it goes up. That's fine. It's not necessarily that it's causing kidney issues unless you have underlying kidney issues. So for the most part, creatine is perfectly safe for people to take, again, unless they have underlying kidney issues. So I've seen it before where fighters have come to me and they're like, oh, my doctor says my levels are high. And I'm like, well, you're taking creatine, so it's likely it's that. Let's do a test. Let's taper off it, get rid of the creatine, and retest and see does the markers come down, and it does. So it's not necessarily just because it's high. It's not necessarily that it's do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily that you're having kidney damage there.
Yeah,
It's
you're
just
right.
yeah, your metabolites are a lot higher. So I don't think it's an issue, and I do feel creatine for a lot of people is a supplement that I recommend, and that it can be very, very helpful for a lot of people. Protein powders, for me, protein powders are more so just a convenience. You know, they're just convenience food, really. You know, it's a byproduct of milk, of processing dairy. So, well, at least whey protein is and casein, but I don't feel that they're overly an issue. I do think the whole protein thing is kind of got out of hand a little bit. It's overplayed. You know, you see everything's high protein pancakes, high protein yogurts, high protein this, high protein bread, high protein beans, whatever. You know, it's almost like a marketing gimmick now to call something high protein, and people think the more protein I get, the better. It's not necessarily that at all. You know, I even somebody in my group sent in a high protein coffee the other day, and I was like, you know, this is getting out of hand completely here.
Right.
I think once you have enough, you know, that's fine. There's no need to go to these massive high amounts. You know, once you just have enough there, um, as we age, as we get older, the amounts that we need is probably a bit higher. But I think once you hit like sort of generally in around 1.6 grams per kilogram per day, which is a lot higher than the recommended nutrient intake for at least over here in the UK. But if you can hit 1.6, that's loads. You know, there's no need for 2 grams, 3 grams, 4 grams, as some people are taking. Whey protein or protein powders, again, it's just a convenience food. So if I was eating something and I felt that maybe the protein content of that meal was low, I would just bulk it out with a bit of protein powder. You know, for me, that's what it is. If I'm busy, I make a protein shake, drink it. It keeps me going for a while. That's all it is really for me.
Nice. Since you're over in Ireland, let's talk a little bit about what the MMA and the Muay Thai training environment's like in Ireland as well as in Europe. I'm sure you've traveled to different parts of Europe and trained in different places. So, you know, at the top of our interview, you mentioned, you know, Ireland, parts of Europe were a little slow, especially in Jiu-Jitsu from
Mhm.
10 years ago and all that kind of, but I'm sure it's caught up, you know,
Oh,
pretty
massively.
fast now.
Yeah.
Uh, are you seeing a shift where there's people coming from all over the world coming to train in your gym and everybody's sort of mixing together?
Mhm. It's definitely grown a lot across the board. You know, MMA, when I was doing it, it was, I suppose you would call it still relatively underground. You know, there was a few shows. Um, it was kind of frowned upon. You know, it was like human cockfighting type thing. Muay Thai has always had a wee bit bigger of a scene back then anyway in Ireland. And Jiu-Jitsu was very, very, very new. You know, like I said, our coach at the time was a blue belt. To have a blue belt was amazing, you know, and then now there's the gym that I'm in where the Brazilian guy came in. I think we've maybe like 15 black belts, you know, so it's crazy how much it's progressed. MMA has exploded in Ireland. You know, obviously Conor McGregor had a big impact on that.
I will say, yeah.
Yeah, you can't like I when I was fighting, Conor was on the scene at the same time that I was fighting. So I know Conor from before he was sort of famous, you know, not very much personally, but I've met him and I've spoke to him a few times. Just on the regional scene before he hit the big time. Um, I work with a couple of guys out of SBG in Dublin as well, a couple of their fighters. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to Dublin for a weight cut in Bellator for one of the SBG's fighters. So it's huge. It's huge here now. You know, the scene from Muay Thai, MMA and Jiu-Jitsu especially. For me, I feel Jiu-Jitsu is actually starting to overtake everything. There's Jiu-Jitsu schools everywhere. In our gym, it's full. The classes are full all the
Great.
time.
Yeah.
There's people coming from, you know, different areas to train with us. There's, you know, it's such a big scene. And Europe especially, yeah, it's massive now. It's getting so big. I do feel MMA's really got big. Muay Thai's starting to come up a lot as well, but I think out of the three, Jiu-Jitsu's definitely taken over. Seems to be, for me anyway, the fastest growing out of the three of them.
What about, let's talk about Muay Thai, for example. You know, I forget his name, but he was I think he fought out of the Netherlands or something like that, but he was the first European guy
Yeah,
to win in the Lumpini Stadium or something like that. I think he,
Ramon Daniels.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So are there some gyms now that are really, really popular in Ireland for Muay Thai and, in other places in Europe, obviously, that's kind of established, but, what's happened with Muay Thai in Northern Ireland?
It's got a lot bigger. Not so much Northern Ireland as such. More so across the border in the south. There's a lot of gyms. There's a few in the north. The club that I train out of has quite a good Muay Thai gym. There's another one in Belfast, which is, I suppose you would call it, the capital of the Northern Ireland. We're kind of it's a kind of region of the world where you can either call Dublin the capital or Belfast the capital, depending on what way you look at it. But yeah, Belfast has a brilliant, a very, very good Muay Thai scene. A couple of guys I work with from there, WBC European champions. Just real high level guys, top within the top 10 in the world.
Yeah.
In the south, again, some very, very good fighters coming out of the south. A couple of guys have fought in one championship. There's world champions, European champions. So yeah, it's quite a big scene over here as well. I suppose the fighting Irish is the call us, so maybe yeah, just there's a lot, yeah, there's a lot of very, very good Muay Thai fighters coming out of Ireland as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, so if you can kind of talk about a little bit about how people can get a hold of you. Like, let's say they come to Northern Ireland. What's your location? Where do you work out of? Are there any other clubs that you travel to, do a lot of work, in other places and things like that? Maybe talk about some of your social, where they can find you on social
Yeah,
media and all that.
yeah, cool. So I suppose the big benefit of what I do, it's I can do it remotely. A lot of my stuff is online. So I have fighters Australia, Dubai, America, England, Ireland, people all over the world. So that's the joy of kind of the system that I've set up. So I can work remotely with people. It's the joy of the internet. We can connect with people all over the world. So yeah, most of my stuff is online. If people are doing weight cuts in person, like tomorrow I'm going to Dublin for Bellator. I've been in Paris for the UFC, different places for different competitions. So yeah, generally I work with people mostly online through the program that I do. So the program itself is very much based around the individual. I work with people as a minimum of 3 months. What we do is we try and fix their habits, get a bit of structure around their diet, look at their performance. How do we build their diet to suit their performance? How do we manage their weight? How do I educate them as well? One of the big things that I try and do is try and educate people as much around nutrition as possible. So I'm literally the last nutritionist they're ever going to need. If they know how to do it themselves, it's easier for me to coach them. But it also means that once they're finished with me, they're done for the rest of their life and know exactly what they need to do. So yeah, that's kind of how I've set it up. It's remote coaching. Again, if they are doing a weight cut and it's not a million miles away from me, I do go in person and help people with weight cuts and things like that as well. So to get in contact, two different avenues, I suppose. Most of my clients come through Instagram, and you just search my name, Yannick Magee Nutrition, and then LinkedIn as well. I've started moving more towards, because I've sort of fell in love with jiu-jitsu again, after so long away from it. I'm training all the time, competing. I've got more of a passion for it now. So I'm working a lot more with jiu-jitsu people. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, more so for the jiu-jitsu kind of people.
That's great. This just reminds me that I know that there's a bunch of people in my gym who are amateur fighters, and the fact that you do a lot of coaching online is really great. So
Yeah.
I know that they're going to be interested in talking to you. I mean, who knows where this can go, but you're exactly right. The fact that we can, you can talk to anybody all over the world and help them out. with all this training advice is just amazing.
Yeah, I think like, you know, I used to do in-person coaching, but you were very limited to your local area, you know, and as corny as it sounds, you know, one of my goals is to try and help as many people as I can, you know, and I used to do this as a hobby. So I did, believe it or not. I had a full-time job and I'd done this on the side more so as a hobby. But then I turned my passion into my career. So you know, the big goal is to try and improve people as much as I can and help as many people as I can. So that's the joy of being able to do it online. I can reach a larger amount of people and help more people. So yeah, it works out well.
Yeah, that's great. All right. All right, we're going to end it here. So thanks so much
Great.
for spending the time, and hopefully I can get to Ireland sometime and meet you.
Nice one for sure. We'll get a few rolls in.
All right.
So nice
Take
one.
care, my friend.
Talk to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.